Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Tungsten Wire. I've been away for a bit, you know, life and whatnot. Um, and today I want to talk about something that's probably not on anyone's mind anymore. Iran and Israel is popping off, so people are more worried about that right now. But it came out recently that former State Department, is that what America calls it? Former State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller, Count Dracula himself, made a interesting admission.
Do you think what's going on in Gaza now is a genocide?
I don't I don't think it's a genocide, but I think I think it is without a doubt true that Israel has committed war crimes.
You wouldn't have said that at the podium.
Yeah, look, because when you're at the podium, you're not expressing your personal opinion. You're expressing the conclusions of the United States government. The United States government had not concluded that they've committed war crimes. Still have not concluded that.
But your personal view is they have,
Well, so
and they were while you were there.
but yes, but here let me.
All right, we don't need to watch anymore. That is essentially Matthew Miller admitting that he knew that there were war crimes being committed by Israel and saying that he does believe it. All right, let's zoom in on me and let me tell you what I think about this. And you know what? Let me talk to Matt. Count Smirkula himself, the guy who smirked when he was standing at the podium, and I believe it was Prem Thacker from Zateo that asked him about Hind Rajab, the 6-year-old who was shot 355 times by the Israeli military, and he just smirked. You remember that? Hey, Matt. You admitted that they were war crimes. But you don't get credit for recognizing war crimes after months of helping to obscure them. You were the U.S. State Department spokesperson, and yet you stood at the podium with the weight of American power behind you. You faced the cameras and told the world to wait, to not rush to judgment. As Israeli bombs reduced Gaza to dust, you asked for all the facts, while the facts piled up in body bags. When it came to Hind Rajab, the investigation is ongoing. Who's doing the investigation? The people who perpetrated the crime. You demanded patience while hospitals were turned into rubble and entire families were wiped out. You helped write the official story, the one that dismissed Palestinian lives as unfortunate collateral, that repackaged civilian death as military necessity, and that treated desperate grief as a public relations obstacle. And now, from the safety of private life, you say that you believe Israel is committing war crimes. Now? Where was that belief when Hind Rajab, 6 years old, called for help from a car filled with the bodies of her family, only to be silenced by 355 bullets? Where was your voice when the ambulance dispatched to save her was deliberately destroyed? When humanitarian workers were targeted? When people were gunned down trying to get flour? The flour massacre, do you remember that? Tell me, Matt, where were you when the world needed someone inside the machine to say enough is enough? Instead, you gave us political theater. You pretended that an Israeli investigation of Israeli conduct was a reasonable response to the mass killing of civilians. You stood before the world and sold time to the perpetrators. Time they used to kill more Palestinians. You cannot now turn around and speak like the concerned citizen and expect to be taken seriously. Your words carry a shadow. They come after the carnage, after the press conferences, after your credibility was spent shielding war crimes with the language of restraint. You helped manufacture consent. You helped normalize atrocity. You played your part with composure, with discipline, all while wearing a sharp suit. And now that the world sees what you helped to conceal, you offer hindsight dressed as morality? Listen, Count Smirkula, morality requires a cost, and you have not paid none. Now let's be honest, right? Remember, Rafah is my red line? Remember that? The administration you spoke for never meaningfully pressured Israel to stop. There was no ceasefire demand, no red line, no consequences, just more weapons, more cover, and your voice. Your voice was a constant. Calm, steady, and complicit. Telling us to wait for justice from those committing the crimes. You had power. You had a platform. You could have stepped down. That would have meant something. That would have sent a signal. That would have shown courage. But you didn't. So no, Matt, you don't get to speak now and expect absolution. Not for the silence, not for the spin, not for standing between the truth and the world at a time when truth might have saved lives. Like I said, just following orders was never good enough. It isn't now, and you should have known that. You cannot be forgiven for what you have done. Not because redemption is impossible, but because there is no vehicle on this planet that can take you to that path of redemption. That's all I've got to say. You know, this guy is just another neoliberal warmonger who's now going to try and sell a book. And there's a book that I'm meaning to get, and I can't really talk about it because I haven't read it yet. And I'm not a Republican. I don't talk before I've, got all the facts. But there's a book written by a Arab gentleman, I believe he's Palestinian, called In the Future We Will Have All Been Against This, or something along those lines. And that's exactly what this is. Matt Miller's not really against it. He still won't call it genocide, even though we know it's genocide. Anyways, that's all I've got to say about this. I'm going to probably release a couple more episodes and then go from there. This is a little bit late and after the fact, but anyways, nice to talk about it.